How's it going, guys? I just wanted to give you a quick tutorial on how to use this virtual lab and some of the tips and tricks that you can use to help make your virtual lab run as smooth as possible here. So the first thing that I want to show you guys is the stock room and how you can pull out all of the different things that you need. First thing I'm going to do is pull out the substances that I need. We're going to need distilled water to make our solutions. And then we have the two chemicals that we're working with, potassium chloride and the serious sulfate. Now I need something to make my solutions in, so up at the top, going to go under glassware and pull out just two 250 milliliter beakers by double clicking on that. So this is all that you're actually going to need in order to complete this lab, and we can work with just these simple tools to get all of the information that we need. Now, I'm not going to show you how to do this specifically on these substances because I don't want to give any information away. So I'm just going to jump over here real quick and work with sodium chloride to show you all of this stuff without giving you that information and kind of ruining it for you. So to start off with here, I want to make my solution. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my distilled water here and click and drag it over to the beaker. And when I do this, it's going to allow me to add the water into the beaker directly. So I tell it exactly how much water I'm going to add in here. Specifically, I'm going to add in 100 milliliters. Go ahead and hit pour. And we've transferred that water in. I'm just going to click and drag my distilled water away. And then I can do the same thing for my sodium chloride. Now, what I want you to take a look at here is that the water, just like the temperature of the water in the bigger container is at 25 degrees Celsius. Let's see what happens when I add in the sodium chloride, which is also currently at 25 degrees Celsius. And like it says in the procedure, I'm going to add in 100 grams of the sodium chloride to observe what happens as a result. Now, as soon as I hit pour here and I take a look at my solution one more time, we notice that the temperature dropped down and is now trying to head back towards room temperature. I'm just going to change the properties of this real quick so that it stays at the same temperature. And we notice that, again, it just dropped down a few degrees as a result of adding in this sodium chloride. So what this means here is that dissolving the sodium chloride into the solution actually took some of the heat out of the water in order to make this happen. So this is what we're talking about here when we say that heat is taken out or heat is absorbed in order for this thing to dissolve. It took heat from the water and took heat into the salt in order to break that salt up. Now, some other properties that we notice in this menu over here is not only does it tell us the temperature, but it tells us the specific contents of this beaker. We have 129.45 milliliter volume for this in total. And inside we have some aqueous species and we have some solid species. So we have H plus OH, which make up the water. And then we have Cl minus and Na plus, which come from the sodium chloride. Now, apart from the molarity of each of these dissolved ions, we also have an amount of sodium chloride that just kind of dropped to the bottom. And you can kind of see in this beaker here, there's a lump of this white solid that just kind of settles down to the bottom there. So what this means is that some of the sodium chloride dissolved and some of it did not. Specifically, if we take the 100 grams of sodium chloride that we started with, and subtract off the amount of substance that settled to the bottom, we'd get the amount of sodium chloride that was dissolved in the solution to begin with. So specifically here, if I have 63.7 grams of sodium chloride dissolved and 100 grams of sodium chloride that I initially added in, that means that about 36.3 grams of sodium chloride is currently dissolved in this solution. Now, one other thing that we can take a look at here is changing the temperature and seeing how the temperature change affects the amount of the sodium chloride that's dissolved. So right-clicking on this, I can look at the thermal properties and change that around for this solution. So under thermal properties, the first thing I want to do is make sure that this box with the insulated from surroundings is checked, because that's going to keep it at the same temperature instead of trying to head back towards room temperature. And then I can click in whatever temperature I want here to change the temperature and see how it affects the solution. So currently at this 23.7 degrees Celsius, we have 63.7 grams left over. Changing this to 50 degrees Celsius brings down the amount of the sodium chloride that is sitting at the bottom to 62.6. And I can change this one more time. I'm going to make this 80 degrees Celsius and see that one more time our amount of sodium chloride that was sitting at the bottom of the beaker has dropped, meaning the amount that we have dissolved in the solution has increased. And again, if I do 61.6 and subtract that number from the 100 that I added in, we'd find that about 38.4 grams of this sodium chloride is dissolved in this solution here. Hope this helped, guys. Please let me know if you have any questions. Shoot me an email, shoot me a Canvas message if you need any help in completing this virtual lab.